Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Gibson Brothers YouTube channel. And today I am going to be talking about AEW All Out. Today I woke up feeling a hangover, much the same way I'm sure many of the wrestlers will be feeling a similar hangover after all of the extra special ultra violence that they perpetrated on each other last night. I myself am Robert BOSS Baines, a professional wrestler of the last 15 years, which 15 years in the professional wrestling world is a really long time. I know there are a lot of people who have a lot more years than I do, and God bless them. I don't know how I made it to 15. I don't know how guys make it to 20. It drives me to just speculate the strength of the individual that is able to make it to 20 years, 25 years, 30 years in professional wrestling. Guys like Christopher Daniels, I look at Christopher Daniels and I say, that is a man with an iron will. He's fantastic. I saw a match this week where Christopher Daniels was wrestling a really good friend of mine and my manager when I'm out doing tag team stuff, Jack Studd, beautiful Jack Studd, wrestling Christopher Daniels in the 90s. And it's fantastic to watch the flowing locks of Christopher Daniels at the time. It's really, really incredible to me how some guys can keep doing this time and time again. But things change. Industries change. This room changed. Welcome, everybody, to my new studio. I was tired of looking at a blank wall, so I decided that this place needed some plussing up. I worked with my partner, Emily May, and we came up with the idea for this design you see here. It's pretty cool. If I put it in wide, actually, I'll throw it in wide right now. You get to see all the lights, the squares. I love the texture on the red squares there. All of this was done by my hand because I am incredibly handy. I put up all the lights. I did all the work on this. The television we had in the house, we just needed a place to put it. We had to have a room in which this television made sense to exist. And in this context, I think this thing works perfectly. There's a little kind of weird, cool light bleed effect, but hey, that's LEDs. What are you supposed to do? So this is my new studio. I hope you enjoy it as I am enjoying it. It's a heck of a lot better than a regular old wall there. I do not like white walls. I've learned this about myself from years of staring at white walls. I hate them. I hate white walls. So to be able to take something like this and turn it into something interesting is the best possible situation. I am a happy camper. Though the painting that was up behind me previously is just right over there. My aunt actually painted that for my wife and I. She's actually a very talented artist, and artistry runs in the family. As you can see from this room, everything I did was hand painted, and I even started painting again recently. So, we're really interesting. I always have to go into a little bit about myself because I'm an egomaniac. I'm a professional wrestler. I have a massive ego, and I'm going to be sharing a lot of that ego with you today, talking about AEW's All Out last night from Chicago, Illinois, a city that I'm very familiar with now from my work with New Japan. Hell of a wrestling town. Hell of a wrestling town is Chicago. People really, really love professional wrestling there, and I love the crowds in Chicago. They show up and show out, and they're ready for really good professional wrestling in Chicago. They love it there, and the show All Out, I feel, was if you like professional wrestling, you're gonna like this show. However, this is going to be a really big opinion piece today. If you like extreme wrestling, you're going to like this show. If you don't like extreme wrestling, you're not going to like this show because of the fact that everything that happened on this show that was not extreme wrestling was almost instantaneously forgotten. And that is really unfortunate. But I feel like this is a problem with AEW as a whole. I don't want to feel like, I don't want you people to feel like I am picking on AEW. That I do not like AEW. I do. I really do. I have met Tony Khan. I have worked with more than half of the people in their locker room. That's who I am. So I like AEW. In no way, shape, or form do I want to see AEW fold, because I have friends who are making money off of AEW. I don't want AEW to go anywhere but up. I want their stock to rise and rise and rise into the stratosphere, because that will help everybody I know. It'll help the entire industry. If AEW does well and is actually a competitor for WWE, that helps everyone, myself included. Myself included, because it gives us options and freedom and where to go. But AEW last night at All Out showed that there are problems structurally and storytelling wise that must be addressed in order for this company, AEW, to see another decade. They have not been around that long, and as a result, you must remember they're in the toddler phase, really. They're kids. There's kids running these companies, and I understand what it's like to distrust the older crowd. I do. In Los Angeles, there has always been this kind of don't trust the old boys mentality. The old boys are wrestling veterans, so to speak. That's what we call them. We call them the old boys. Don't trust the old boys, because there was always a feeling that the old boys were in it for themselves. They were going to take as much money as they could, look you in the face, call you stupid, and then absolutely blow town, putting in as little effort as possible. The old boys that we saw did not care about the young guys. They didn't care about them at all. As a result, in LA, we have a very anti-establishment kind of feeling about ourselves. That's who we are. That's who I am, especially. I don't want anybody telling me what to do or what to think, because I believe they have their own personal agenda. And it is for those reasons and with that outlook that AEW was formed, because of guys like the Young Bucks, who are from LA and have exactly the same mindset that I do. Do not trust the old boys. They are in it for themselves. But the problem is, when you aren't surrounded with anybody who's going to disagree with you about your opinion, a lot of the opinions that are not good will get through. They will filter through to the audience. So for All Out, there were a lot of ideas that were pitched. I don't know who's in charge of what at AEW. I do, but on the show, let me be specific. I know who's running things backstage at AEW. However, I don't know who specifically is responsible for what on the night of All Out in Chicago. And that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But there were ideas that managed to get through the creative process and onto television that were so egregious and upsetting to the viewer that they will never be seen again, including the thumbnail for this video. The thumbnail for this very video that I uploaded myself is an image that will never be shown by AEW again. I think that's a sign. That is a sign that certain things maybe are not working in the way that we would hope. And I don't know who's responsible for Bryan Danielson's predicament. I don't know who was responsible for literally the bag over the head. I don't know who did it. But there is a problem when AEW has to come out after something is made air and become so so upsetting to so many viewers. If AEW has to come out and say we distance ourselves from this completely, there is a problem with the process. There are not enough checks and balances in the way of a bad idea. That's what I believe. The Bryan Danielson bag over the head was a bad idea because I'm talking about it right now. But it's not as though the Bryan Danielson bag over the head came out of nowhere. This is just a symptom of a larger problem. The show was too violent. AEW All Out was too friggin' violent. We had some great matches on this card, and my frame of reference is always to stay positive. I want to tell you all about the things that I love. I do not want to talk about the things that I don't like because I don't want to give them air. I don't want to give them the time of day. I don't want to allow negativity to run my life and ruin my life the way it does for a lot of these professional wrestling talking head type analyst people. I am not a negative analyst. I've never been a negative analyst. I don't believe in it. I think negativity is one of the most harmful things in the world. And I think when it comes to professional wrestling, it runs absolutely rampant. And I'm not going to participate. I am not going to participate. The only place that I come to at this show, which I had a hard time watching, and be quite honest, a hard time watching, is I want to make it better. And I feel like I am in a really unique space where I know a lot of people outside of the professional wrestling industry, and I know a lot of people inside of the professional wrestling industry. And this show, All Out, was not made for a casual fan. It wasn't. This show came 2 weeks after an absolutely gigantic show and All In at Wembley Stadium. 2 weeks is not a lot of time. So to attempt to sell tickets, they had to keep amping up the violence factor on this show. And it started with MJF and Daniel Garcia. That's on the main show. Their rhetoric is out of control. I don't even have a graphic. I kid you not, I tried to find a graphic for MJF and Daniel Garcia, and I could not do it because ironically, everyone seems to have forgotten that this match even happened on a card that was completely unhinged. So all I have is the All Out graphic to talk about this. But MJF and Daniel Garcia had a match where they openly said they were trying to end each other's careers, which is not a thing in professional wrestling, really. When it does happen, it happens in incredibly subtle ways. I do not believe that anybody is trying to break anybody's neck when they say it. I don't believe them, period. Mostly because anybody who actually does break anybody's neck in professional wrestling is incredibly sorry and marred for life with a mark of shame upon them. Guys like Ridge Holland. You know who Ridge Holland is, because if you are upset Big E is on the shelf for the foreseeable future, you're aware of who Ridge Holland is. Ridge Holland has a massive black mark on him, and it didn't come with any of the rhetoric of I'm going to break his neck, I'm going to end his career. That really happened. A man's career was potentially ended, not by choice, but by complete freak accident. And it effectively ruined Ridge Holland's career because he has yet to fully recover. He was supposed to be a huge thing in professional wrestling. Ridge Holland was the next big thing for a minute. I remember when he debuted. I remember a lot of the people I know backstage at NXT going, hey, man, whoa, you've got to see Ridge Holland. Holy smokes. This guy's incredible. He's got this incredible sports background. He's strong as an ox. He's handsome. He's got something, man. He's got something. And then he got hurt, and you're like, that's tough. That's tough. Oh, too bad. And then he finally makes it up to the main roster, and he injures Biggie. He breaks Biggie's neck. He does the thing that MJF and Garcia say that they're going to do to each other tonight. He actually does it. He did it. And at the same time, he has this black mark. He's basically everyone's fine. He's fine. He's fine. But there's this cloud that hangs over the man. You can't say there isn't. So for you to tell me and have me believe you're going to break somebody else's neck, you're going to end their career, you're lying. You're a liar. There's no way in hell I'm going to buy that. I'm not going to buy that. As a story, as a person, you expect me to believe that you're actually going to injure somebody on purpose. And then what? Just walk around backstage just normally? No. I'm having to censor myself because how I really feel comes to a lot of expletives that will definitely make monetization of this video very difficult. But I am first and foremost a businessman. That's who I am. I'm the boss, and I want to make money. So I'm not cursing to my heart's content, which is what I really want to do, because I don't buy the fact that two guys want to hurt each other. The only thing that fixed the match for me, as it was a good match, though a little like, I don't believe where we're going with this. The one thing that fixed the match for me was MJF kicking Daniel Garcia between the legs and rolling him up and trying to go for a handshake. That is what happens in a real fight. That is actually what happens in a real fight. No, none of these other guys with all their bluster and all their BS are actually trying to hurt each other. And MJF, by the end of it, just wanted out because he as a character is the small dog with a huge bark. And that's perfect. He talks up this big game about what a badass he is. But literally, when he bites off more than he can chew, he resorts to absolutely the dirtiest tricks and tries to get out of there as fast as possible. He is all bluster. He is all talk. And that's MJF. And I love it. I love that that's how that match ended because there's no place else to go. Really. Garcia got the better of it. Garcia lost, but got the better of the situation. God bless. And actually looked like he tried to break MJF's neck. So at least in story, something interesting happened. One guy was a fraud and the other guy was the real deal to a degree. Because nothing would make me more angry than a guy kicking me in the rocks after threatening me and trying to hurt me and then trying to run away. Nothing would make me angrier. Not a thing would make me angrier than that. So I'm glad that something interesting happened in that match. But here we have a problem immediately. Blood. There's blood in the first match of the night. And there's blood in half of all the matches on the card. Mark Briscoe was an accident. Mark Briscoe busted his eyebrow open in the four-way for the Continental Championship that Kazuchika Okada is holding right now. He busted his eyebrow open. And that happens. You know what? That happens all the time. I've had my eyebrow split open on more than one occasion. That just happens. But that's the sport. But having everyone else bleeding really makes the blood worth less. It makes it worth exponentially less the more you do it. If Mark Briscoe had been one of only 2 matches on the night to get blood, which was real blood, Mark Briscoe's eyebrow got split open, not on purpose. There's no way you can tell me that was on purpose. And it would have meant more if, for some reason, it was that was it. Like, oh my God, he got color. We got blood. He's bleeding. Oh my God. Instead, we have blood 4 other times that make it count for even less. And where are we supposed to go? One of the matches on this card that was supposed to be violent on purpose was between two people who I really, really like, who had at least the designs of having a Chicago street fight in Chicago, because you have to. That's just wrestling rules, wrestling law. You have to have a street fight in Chicago. One of them is Willow Nightingale. The other is Chris Statlander. Willow I know incredibly well. Incredible wrestler. Incredible wrestler. Jeff Jarrett calls her champ. I call her champ too. I do. I was there when she beat Mercedes Moné for the Strong Women's Championship. I was there. I was literally I was timekeeper on that show. Technically, yeah, I was timekeeper. So I'm always pleased to see Willow, because she is an incredible wrestler. And tonight she had the opportunity to be as creatively violent as possible. And I feel like this show and this match was as creatively violent as possible. It was really interesting. I saw some stuff during this match that I had not seen before, and I feel like both individuals in this match were really throwing their whole into the fight that was before them. They were really trying, and it looked great because of that. And I love it when two people commit, and it feels like Statlander and Willow Nightingale committed. They committed to this. However, every match on this show had me thinking to myself, this should be over by now. There was a moment late in the match where my mind went, this should be over. And it unfortunately, it goes for this match too. By the time a chain was introduced and it tethered both wrestlers' wrists together, I went, this is another match. This is no longer a Chicago street fight. This is another match entirely. This is just a dog collar match or a strap match. Like, save it. I think you should save it. I feel like we're cramming way too much into these matches, and it's at the detriment of the storytelling. I really feel that. I feel like in professional wrestling, I'm gonna be talking about some things here that you don't get talked about in other people's podcasts, because I'm the professional doing this. I'm the boss. There's a principle of escalation in a professional wrestling match. Okay, this is some stuff that I would be telling people in coaching. This is stuff that I tell people when I'm coaching them. There's a principle of escalation. You have to think about what is the biggest thing in a professional wrestling match that you're in. How can you make sure that the biggest thing that happens comes at the end? How can you do that? And I feel like a lot of the principle of escalation is just gone from these matches. Maybe this match might have had the most violently dramatic conclusion. That may have had that. The tapping out to the chains wrapped around the face, I like that. I like that a lot. That was creative. I don't think it had to come the way it did, because there was a chain earlier on. Why don't we just use that? Why do we have to introduce this whole other piece of prop, essentially, that's gonna what's the point? What's the point is the question I'm left with. What is the point of this? This might be the only match that actually functioned on a principle of escalation and ended with arguably the biggest spot, the biggest moment. Other than them flying off of the stage through a couple of tables, that was pretty big. But I feel that was closer to the end. I feel like a lot of these matches just need to end sooner. You cannot do everything you want, nor should you. You shouldn't do everything you want in a professional wrestling match, because you should always leave something on the table. You should always do a little bit less than you think you should, so that when you have matches in the future, you can go, I have this thing. I haven't done it yet. We should do this thing. And if it works, then do it. But don't do it just because of you think, well, we have to top the match that came before us. And I feel that in that pursuit, you're in a lot of trouble. If you are chasing the match in front of you instead of just doing what makes sense for your character and you're going to lose a lot of what makes sense about professional wrestling. You're going to lose you. And it just ceases to make sense. This is a lot of opinion. And I don't normally share stuff like this. I don't. Because this is stuff that I don't think fans need to hear. This is for professionals only. But I have a rule. In my analysis. I believe that making smarter wrestling fans will make smarter wrestlers, because smarter wrestling fans will be better at choosing the things that make the most sense because they use critical thinking. I think critical thinking is what is going to lead you towards good entertainment and away from bad entertainment. Critical thinking is where it's at, 100%. And I think if you use critical thinking to look at a lot of these matches, then you're going to come to the conclusion that matches are good when they make the most sense. They don't try and do the most stuff. That's why Mercedes Moné and Shida was a good match. That was a good match because it made a lot of sense. And I feel that Mercedes Moné is almost completely alone in her field. There are not a lot of people who can be Mercedes Moné. They just can't. They can't touch her. But in the ring, I feel that the energy of Mercedes Moné is rarely parodied by her opponent, which isn't meant in a mocking way so much as it's not mirrored. People don't match Mercedes Moné's energy. She throws her entire body at somebody because she's small, because she has to. She has to hit people as hard as she can because she's not very big. And Shida was able to do that. Shida was able to 100% mirror the energy of Mercedes Moné. So there were more than a few moments in this where I thought, wow, Shida really could take it. She's got Mercedes like right where she wants her. Shida looked amazing because Shida's really good. She is really good. But Mercedes is an international superstar, and she gets views and attention. As I'm speaking now, more people have tuned into this podcast than at any other moment because I'm talking about Mercedes Moné, and people can hear it. They can hear me talking about Mercedes Moné. Mercedes doesn't need a lot to get people's attention. She has an amazing presentation. Even last night, she was wearing a kimono with a 10-foot train. Like, God, she looks amazing. She just looks fantastic. And Shida comes in with an energy that's all her own. And these two are made for each other. I know Mercedes was watching New Japan when her contract with WWE was beginning to expire. I knew that she was watching New Japan because she would do things that we did on our show. I know this. I know it to be true without having to ask, because that's how knowledgeable I am about what I'm talking about. Mercedes is a huge fan of Joshi wrestling, as is everyone else I know. Nothing is more creative than Joshi wrestling, in my opinion. They have the most creative people. They have the greatest commitment to do what they believe they're supposed to do of anybody else. The creativity is through the roof. I don't know what makes Joshi wrestling so amazing, but Joshi wrestling is amazing. And Mercedes Moné finally being able to wrestle a Japanese wrestler ensures that the things that Mercedes actively wanted to do and pursue are going to be done with the best possible execution because somebody is there to match her. When she hauls off and hits somebody, Sheeta is 100% guaranteed to give it back and harder. And that's good. This had some amazing moments in it. It really this was a match that I felt this is what the company should be built on. Not all the blood and guts. This is what it should be built on because of marketability. Marketability is the most important thing in professional wrestling in all of entertainment. It is not the actual wrestling. Wrestling is secondary. And I'm sorry to say it. It just is. I am a person who has pursued the best in professional wrestling my entire career and my entire life. My entire freaking life. I started as a kid watching this. I knew the moment I saw it, I wanted to do it. And I knew by God, I was going to be as good as I possibly could at doing it. So I actually actively seeked out the best people to learn from. That's why I learned from starting from the bottom. I learned from Ryan Katz, Bo Cooper, who is a Southern California veteran and still has some of the most amazing stuff I've ever seen. From there, we went, let's not forget Jesus Rodriguez, Ricardo Rodriguez. I learned a lot from him, even though we were more on the same level. He had done more, so I learned a lot from him. From there, we went on to Shannon Ballard. Shannon Ballard trained John Cena at UPW. Shannon Ballard trained a ton of people. You should look up Shannon Ballard. The guy's a freaking genius. From there, we went to Brian Kendrick. Brian Kendrick is an actual genius. Like he knows exactly what he's talking about. He's completely brilliant and creative. There is something to be said for creativity in professional wrestling. Brian Kendrick has not only the ability to create real professional wrestling, but he also has the ability to create incredibly comedic professional wrestling. You have to be creative. Creativity is a cornerstone of professional wrestling. From there, I trained a bit with Paul London. I trained a bit with Nigel McGuinness. I was lucky to work with Roddy Piper. I have learned from all these people. And finally, the LA Dojo. I trained as much as I possibly could at the LA Dojo. No, I was never a young lion. That was never in the cards for me, but I learned as much as I possibly could. I learned as much as I possibly could from somebody like Shibata, who is the wrestler. Somebody whose moniker is the wrestler means that no one else is better at professional wrestling. Period. Just the wrestling. Just the wrestling. Just the physical ability. Just the in-ring stuff. Shibata is the absolute best. But then I was able to learn from a lot of the people that New Japan had to offer to bring in. And I've been lucky to learn so much from so many. And that's what makes wrestling great. And none of it has to do with an incredible amount of violence. It just has to do with commitment. You just have to commit to be who you are. And Mercedes Moné has the idea and the execution. She is the CEO. And she shows up and she looks like the CEO. She looks like the idea of Ric Flair. She looks like somebody who is made of money, who can print money just by showing up. That is who Mercedes looks like. She's fantastic. She's hands down the best at what she is currently doing. My only wish was that she was the good guy. My only wish in heaven was that her presentation on television was her as the good guy, because I cannot tell you how many people want it out for you when you are doing well. People want to cut you in half when you are doing well. They will line up behind you with their knives out, one after the other, waiting to stab you in the back. I think that is a more compelling story than whatever this is going on with Mercedes Moné. Mercedes Moné should be the good guy. Everybody wants to cheer her anyway. Why are we making this harder on ourselves? I think Mercedes Moné should be fighting the rogues gallery of everybody, and everyone else should be worse than her. and she should just show up and be the good guy. And I think that's the antithesis of what Ric Flair is, to be sure. However, I think that's what really makes sense because people want to cheer her. And when people want to cheer you, don't make it hard for them. Give them what they want. They want to cheer Mercedes Moné. You just have to be humble and work hard. In professional wrestling, being a good guy is not as hard as it seems. I have had a lot of conversations with a lot of people about how do I be a good guy? All you have to do is work hard. That's all people want in professional wrestling, is for you to work hard. And Mercedes Moné is working incredibly hard. And that is why everybody wants to see her and cheer her. She works incredibly hard. And in this match, you could cheer her. She did not have Camille for this match. She looked like the good guy. And she was fairly dominant in this. She wasn't on her heels. She wasn't running away. As somebody who is without their crutch would be running away, Mercedes wasn't. Mercedes stayed there, which is respectable. That's respectable. So it's hard to boo Mercedes Moné. And I wouldn't. I don't want to. You cannot convince me to boo Mercedes Moné because she's great. She's absolutely hands down great. And if she just leaned into it, maybe it would make a little bit more sense. The crowds wouldn't sound so mixed. They wouldn't sound so confused. So here's an example of something that absolutely, this should be the cornerstone of AEW, but instead something else is happening. We're having this arms race. It's like the Cold War, so to speak. Here's another one. Here's another one that I really liked. Bryan Danielson. Bryan Danielson is the best wrestler of right now. Just pure wrestling and being able to tell a story that is cohesive and understandable. This is professional wrestling's best. This is AEW's best. I cannot argue that more. Bryan Danielson is the champion, and he is the best thing that AEW has. Period. You've got Jack Perry, who is easy not to like. He's really easy not to like. Even I have had a physical altercation with him probably more than once out in front of a crowd. He's easy not to like. But you have Bryan Danielson, who's a gracious champion, and Jack Perry, who just wants to make the most noise. And I think Jack Perry's doing exactly what he should be. He's a young guy challenging the older guys. And again, it's that LA thing. It's the LA thing of don't trust the old boys. They're in it for themselves. They don't have your best interests. Jack Perry is the scapegoat because of that, no gods, no masters kind of mentality. He hates older guys pretending they have their best interest at heart for him. And that's exactly why Jack Perry and CM Punk would not get along. 100%. And it's exactly why Jack Perry and Bryan Danielson wouldn't get along. 100%. Because Jack Perry comes from the same place that I do, where everyone's trying to take advantage of you, and it's all disguised as, oh, I'm just looking out for you, kid. I'm just looking out for you. When a lot of the times they're not. These old guys that say they have their best interests in mind for you are not looking out for your best interests. But this is one of those instances where Bryan Danielson, in taking this match, is looking at the best possible interests of Jack Perry. He is legitimizing Jack Perry. Jack Perry has wrestled a lot of people. None of them have had the gravitas of Bryan Danielson. Bryan Danielson is the tip top. I had to have some of my iced coffee. I'm talking my throat out here. So Bryan Danielson's doing Jack Perry a favor. And in no way does anyone think Jack Perry's going to win. Nobody. Not even Danielson thinks Jack Perry's going to win. The closest near fall in this match, Bryan looked at the referee and looked at Jack like, well, I'll be damned. This kid might actually be worth something. But in no way was he threatened by Jack. Jack is threatening, but Jack is he doesn't have the time necessary to be a real legitimate threat to Bryan Danielson. There's just no way in hell. So Bryan Danielson wins. No problem. No problem. Bryan Danielson wins, and it's a struggle, yada yada. At the end, Christian Cage does the thing, Blackpool Combat Club, and then the unthinkable happens. And it's the moment that opened this show. When I started recording it, we talked about it. The image that will never be shown by AEW is the thumbnail for this. It is the bag over the head. The bag over the head will never be seen by anybody, which is why I had to lead with it. Because the point of professional wrestling is to make money. At the end of the day, like I said, wrestling doesn't matter. Marketability matters. The ability to go to a sponsor and say, we want you to have your name on our product because we believe our product is really good. Sponsors will look at this and look at your product and go, okay, we're going to give you X amount of money and we want this, this, and this. That's how you make money. It only works for the sponsors if the images and videos associated with the event are seen by as many people as possible. That's why it's marketing. This all comes out of a marketing budget. DraftKings was all over that pay-per-view last night. They were all over it. They were talking about it on the announce desk. Every inch of that place was covered in DraftKings. Every inch. And nobody is going to see half of that show because no sponsor wants to be associated with that much gratuitous violence. They don't. You can't sell it here on YouTube. I might have to change the thumbnail for this show. I cropped it in ever such a way so people know what the image is, but it is not apparent what is happening. You think that's by accident? No, we are trying to monetize. Everyone is trying to monetize. So when there is money on the line, you have to think about what sponsors want. How do we make money off of this? You cannot monetize content with blood on YouTube. Period. That's a hard fact. I am in charge of a lot of different videos on this channel. And the stuff that gets pinged as not being suitable for advertisers is crazy. Things that I have no control over that get pinged, and now we can't make money off of them. We can't make money off of them. So as I see it, last night's AEW show was a tax write-off because they can't make money on any of it. And yes, this is leading to Moxley and Danielson. Thank you in comments. But there is a problem with the expectation of violence. Where do we go from here? The main event on tonight's card was a unsanctioned match that still looked exactly like every other match. And what does it matter? It doesn't change. How the match felt didn't change. And what the idea of the match was completely ridiculous. There's no way that you can sell to me that people want to hurt each other. They don't in real life. They just want to make as much money as possible. They don't hate each other this much. Nobody does in professional wrestling. Hangman Page and Swerve. All right. You know what? I got somebody active in my comments. Let's go into it. Let's get into it. Let's get into Hangman and Swerve because I have a lot of thoughts, and a lot of people are really gonna find my opinions to be whatever. This was dumb. This was dumb. How we got here, the house on fire. I am a guy who has had a lot of time in the entertainment industry. I've been in TV, movies, professional wrestling, on stage. I have done it all in professional wrestling and in the entertainment industry because I'm from LA. It's just a thing you do there. It's the industry. Them burning down the house was cool. From a movie standpoint, that was cool. When I was a kid, my dad was in a movie and they paid him money to blow up his apartment. It's in a movie. For the life of me, I can't remember what the movie is. But there's a scene where they blew up my father's honest to God, they blew up his apartment in North Hollywood. And that was really cool. It's amazing that you're able to do that kind of stuff. And burning a house down on a television show is fantastic. But we have a problem in that it sets an unreasonable expectation of what's going on or what's going to happen. When you set a person's house on fire, I believe there's no way to top it. There's no way to top it. Professional wrestling is a movie. Yes. However, there has to be a principle of escalation. You burn down a guy's house. What's next? I always go back to the line from, I can't remember the movie now, but it's about the principle of escalation. They send one of yours to the hospital. You send one of theirs to the morgue. You know, it's always going up. So when you set somebody's house on fire, where are we supposed to go? How does this affect what happens in the actual wrestling match? I feel like ECW was better at keeping this under control. Things happened in the arena for the most part. There were things that happened outside of the arena too. But everything that was executed was in the arena itself. And now we have somebody's house getting set on fire. And now we have a match in a cage after somebody's house was set on fire, after there's a blood feud. What are we supposed to expect? My partner, Emily May, who some of you may know, went on Wrestling News Co.'s Wrestling News Inc. Oh boy, now I don't know which. She was doing a podcast last night to cover All Out, and she said that she wanted fire in the match itself. That Hangman Page and Swerve Strickland, everything they did not meet expectations because it wasn't violent enough. It was not violent enough. We are stuck in an arms race in AEW. It is a complete arms race for who can be the most violent, not who's actually the best wrestler, not who's actually the most marketable, not who can make the audience care the most. It is who can be the most insanely violent. And it's not going to work. It's not, because you cannot make money off of this. All Out was a love letter to wrestling fans. Great. I'm so happy for wrestling fans. But if you want to make money, you cannot do this kind of thing repeatedly on a show. You cannot reshare images with blood in them, period. So without the ability to do that, you will not make money, period. It does not get any simpler than that. Money has to come in to the company for people to get paid, and you're not going to be able to do it with ticket sales. I've been in that venue. It isn't big enough to support what they're doing. And not a lot of people are into professional wrestling that's this violent. They're just not, myself included. But let me tell you this. I've been in a lot of violent matches. And there's a lot of moments that you have as a creative person in professional wrestling that you try to create the platform to support the violent thing that's going to happen. You say, I have this idea. How do we make it okay that this happens? And the house burning down is perhaps their way of trying to make it make sense. But the problem is that it doesn't make sense. At some point, it stops making sense. At some point, a death match has to kill somebody, or what are we doing? We are writing checks with our mouths that our ass simply cannot cash. You're lying to your audience, and they're not going to buy it because I'm not going to buy it. I don't buy that two guys want to kill each other in professional wrestling, because if they hit each other too hard, they bitch like a bunch of pissy little girls. They're not trying to really hurt each other. So if you make it about sport, then at least you have someplace to go. At least you can be, I am the better technician. I am the better at this. I'm the better at this. Nobody actually wants to kill anybody, and people on the street are not going to buy that. They're going to turn their nose up at like, that's stupid. I do not feel like that AEW is doing themselves any favors by trying to be more violent. The fact that this was the main event just shows to me that what they're actually into is not wrestling. This is what draws the house. It wasn't even the title match. It was this, because it was a specialty match and it was unsanctioned, but it felt like a regular match. Here's my thing. If you have an unsanctioned match that is billed unsanctioned, do not have any music, do not have a ring announcer, do not have any of that. That will make it feel like something that you should not be watching, something that is not supposed to happen, something that is vaguely illegal. There should be a feeling in this where people are like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be watching this. And it gives it this idea that, oh, this is dangerous. And you leave all of the most dangerous stuff in one match. This match should have been a standalone as the pinnacle for violence on the show that is All Out. This should have been it. Instead, we had Willow Nightingale and Chris Statlander, a match I liked, but it didn't belong here because then again, we're competing. We're competing again. You got Daniel Garcia and you got MJF, a match that I love because of the fact that it's such that MJF is so full of shit. And I got a curse word. MJF is so full of it that he just lied and took the easiest way out at the end of that match, which was perfect. I think that most people who talk really big are completely full of crap. They're full of crap. They lie. They lie. And so does MJF. MJF lied. So there's that. There has to be less violence so that the violence that is there stays fresh in people's minds and hearts. Violence should be upsetting, not ho-hum. I always compare violent wrestling matches to movies because blood gets old really fast. There's nothing interesting about blood after a while. Blood for blood's sake is not interesting. It's just not. But if you create suspense, if you scare your audience, if you create a feeling of impending doom and get them to care about people, that's harder. Getting people to care about other people is much, much harder. And you get to do far less to them. The hypodermic needle spot last night in Hangman and Swerve was stupid. It was stupid. In no way did it make a difference to the match whatsoever. Nothing is more gratuitous than that spot. And I've seen it done a lot from a guy called Mr. California. Mr. California has done that hypodermic needle spot for years, and it's boring as hell. It doesn't actually do anything. It's all just a stunt at that point. And we got a question in chat. I need to see this. DCX Cobra. Was AEW making a lot of money a few years ago when it was just a sports or professional wrestling, though, back when it started? Yeah, more money than it was now. I've been a fan of AEW since 1819. Yeah, it was making more money. And here's how. When you reshare the images, such as the hypodermic needle that I was just telling you about, it will be censored on every possible platform that you can make money on, period. You cannot make money off of it anymore. You can't make money. And the point of professional wrestling is to make money so that you can support all of the hardworking wrestlers you have in the back. There are so many people that rely on AEW and Tony Khan to make money that they would be completely up a river if it weren't for him. And that is so important. So his first and foremost, he should be worried about trying to make money for all the people who rely on him. That's what you should be worried about. You have to be worried about making money for the people who care, who actually rely on you. Here, Steve Miller in the chat. There's no need for blood when everyone knows it's a work. Rather just see good wrestling. I'm with you. However, I'm going to say blood is important sometimes, but it has to be harder to get. You have to make blood harder to get in a professional wrestling match. Or else, what's the point? Everybody bleeds for no reason. And blood is one note. Let's go back to the movie analogy. I like Jaws because you can't see the thing coming. Alien, the same premise. You can't see the thing coming, and when you finally do, it's nightmare fuel because you only see it for a moment, because your mind is the worst possible enemy of your sanity, your own mind. There are people on the street who would want to kill you, and they are not nearly as scary as anything that you can think of in your own head. Things that don't exist are scarier than people who actually do. That's the truth. You're afraid of the dark because there's nothing there, and your brain is able to make whatever it wants come true. That's the truth. They are afraid. People are afraid of the things that exist in their own head. I'm not afraid of anything I saw last night. We have another question. Cobra. Doesn't storylines also include a feud that's more, I guess you mean feud that's more personal? Not everyone or all matches or feuds are so-called personal. There has to be at least one that includes something. Correct. However, on this show, there were more than half the card was some kind of blood feud. And then the Danielson thing turned into a bag over the head, which is attempted murder. So in the past week of AEW television, we have had arson, a real goddamn crime. Oops, I swore. And attempted murder. Even the crowd went, this is murder. They know. They know. The point is to make the audience believe. It's not to tell a story and have them question, is this the right thing to do? No, they should believe it's real. When Bryan Danielson gets a bag over his head from his friend and partner, Jon Moxley, it should matter. The audience should be upset. They should be really foaming at the mouth. Instead, the entire audience knows this is a work. They know that all of this is acting and performing. So their reaction to this is, well, is this the right thing to do? Is putting a bag over the head of your champion the right thing to do? Instead of reacting like, oh my God, he tried to kill him. Oh my God. They should be absolutely pulling their hair out. If the company has created a platform on which violence yields no emotional return, then there is no point to the violence. The violence must end, or at least not ended, curbed. It has to be shortened. It has to be shortened. I'm about to go over an hour, so I want to thank everybody for stopping by. We had probably the most people on this stream that we've had in the brief history that I've had of hosting these things. And I want to thank you all for joining me. If you all want to help me out, here is my Cash App. Please scan the QR code on your screen. Go ahead and throw me a tip. If you like what I said, even if you don't agree with it, and I'm sure there's a ton of you who don't agree with it, please throw me a few dollars on my Cash App. That's $13005 BAINES. For Gibson Brothers Wrestling, I want to thank you. Please like, subscribe, and get those notifications. I am Robert BOSS Baines. Thank you for joining me today. Please don't get too violent out there.